How's it going there, everybody? Carpo here. I just wanted to tell y'all a quick story about a weird thing that happened to me last night and kind of address what happens when strange people show up at your door at midnight. I wasn't even going to tell the story, but I thought it was kind of interesting and worth sharing, and then maybe I'll see this video down the line and be like, I remember when that happened. So, it's already been a little bit stressful in 2020, right? Everybody's on edge. People out there are all paranoid about this or that, but being worried about your home or concerned about your safety at home is paramount. It's the very first thing. Even the most liberal minded, passive, peaceful person should damn well know how to defend themselves in their home and their family, or else they're just being, irresponsible in that sense. But um, the weirdest thing happened last night, and it's the coincidences are just to the fact that, it was only about a week ago that I bought and set up a home security system, and monitors and everything. And I wanted to make sure that if anything happened to my house, like when I was gone camping for a few weeks this summer, I thought, what if somebody tried to break into my house or even was snooping or casing it? I'd want to know that. So I bought a security system and spent some time, installing it. So a week passes. My wife and I are just sitting there last night watching TV, and this knock comes at the door at about midnight. Now I have a glass door. It's like a fancy door I took home from a job site I was working on. He bought too many of these solid doors, but they have all these, panels, so I can peek out through the glass with the curtain and see who's there. And I don't worry much. I have a good neighborhood. I mean, I live in, you would call it a suburb of Portland. It's Vancouver, Washington, but it's more or less like, a large part of Portland is right over the bridge. So, but there's crime here like anywhere else. In fact, before I moved here, I thought it was worse than it is, but it comes and goes. It depends on where you're at and which area. So, don't want to ramble too much about that, but just to give you an idea of, it's a generally safe area. I've left my cars unlocked for, many times for years and not had any issue. I don't do that anymore, but because we've had two car break-ins and one car stolen from our driveway while it was running. My wife started it before work. 5 minutes later, somebody drove off in it. They drove another stolen car up, parked it, got out, and took hers. It was just a crazy coincidence. They just happened to pull up at the right time. So, to get to the story here, I'm sitting there with my wife, and I hear this knock, 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 knock at the door. I go and I open the curtain, kind of peek out. It's this kind of short guy. I guess he was probably 5'4", 5. Younger dude. He looked, I wanted to say Asian, but he looked more like Pacific Islander. But he was definitely of, some Islander descent. And he had this, but all I could see was this much of his face. And he had this black hoodie on and like dark pants. And he was kind of just moving like this. And he was back a few feet from my door. And so I open my door. My dog's at the door. She's a big husky now. So I hold her by the collar and I open the door and he kind of steps back, because I got the dog in my hand. And I'm like, hey, how's it going? And it was kind of late at night. I had my hair up in like this, man bun, if you will. Obviously I look like the stoner type, right? But still, I've never seen this guy in my life. I have no idea what he wants. And he goes, I was like, what? And I couldn't hear what the hell he was saying. He was acting all weird. Instantly knew he was high, probably tweaking. But anyway, he says that, and I said, what? Like 3 times. I was like, I can't hear what you're saying, man. What's up? And he goes, you got any stuff? I was like, no. I was like, dude, get the fuck out of here. It was my instant reaction. I just, I didn't say, no, dude, I don't know what your issue is. Go away or something. It was my instant instinct was to be like, get the fuck out of here. And he's like, kind of, backed up and he took off and he turned around to say something else. And I'm like, get the fuck out of here and don't come back. All right. So he keeps walking down the street the way he came. I came back in, told my wife what happened. I said, that was just weird. We should go back through the camera footage and see what happened. But before that, I said, well, I want to make sure the guy's gone. So something told me he had gone 3 houses down to this guy, or 2 houses down to this guy, Michael, who I've known him since he was a little kid. He used to live down here on the block, and he's in his probably mid-late 20s now. he works on cars and stuff, and I guess he was working on his car really late, and he said the guy came to his driveway. I just, for some reason, knew he was going to go there. The guy came to his driveway. He said that he came walking up, and his dog ran out, and the guy panicked and jumped on his Jeep hood to get away from the dog. And he told me this later, but I'll get to that point. So when I walked back out in my front yard, I kind of looked around because I had a feeling he might walk back by, and he did. He started walking back by me. At this point, I didn't know where he had gone. He was just coming back by, and I just stood there with my arms crossed, standing in my front yard in the dark. And as he was walking by, he saw me, and I didn't say a word. And then he just kind of stopped again, and he goes, he started doing that again. Yeah. I was like, what, dude? And he must have done this three times, trying to tell me something. And I said, what? And he goes, you got to smoke? Because I had my vape in my hand, and I had taken a vape while he was walking up, and he thought I was smoking. So I said, no, dude, I don't smoke. And he kind of like, and I was like, it's a vape. I don't smoke. He goes, oh. He goes, you got any acid? And this is where I just snapped on the guy. I was like, do you think I'm a fucking drug dealer? What the fuck are you talking about? What are you doing in my neighborhood? Get the fuck out of here now. And he kind of starts walking off, and I was like, go, get the fuck out of here. And I just screamed. I kind of felt like a dick, but then I thought that's the right thing to do in your neighborhood when somebody comes to your door at midnight asking for drugs. But I still have empathy for the guy. He's young, he's high, and I don't want him to have any problems. And I'm afraid he's going to get hurt more than he's going to hurt somebody else. Walk up to the wrong person's door, going to get your ass shot. So I didn't know what to do. And it was funny because right then, as I was yelling at him, Michael comes walking down from down the street. He's like, hey. And he walked up, and I was like, you know that guy? He's like, no. He's like, he came up and he told me the story about how he jumped on the hood and everything and took off. And he's like, yeah, I told him I'd call the cops and told him to get the fuck out. He goes, he asked me for some meth. I was like, what? At that point, I was like, he had rounded the corner and was walking towards like Mill Plain Boulevard. And that's when I yelled. I was like, I don't ever want to see you in this fucking neighborhood again, or I'm going to beat your ass. And that's not me, but it is the truth. I'm not a passive liberal. I will kick somebody's ass if they fuck with my family or come near me or my kids. I do not tolerate bullshit from people. But I generally respect and give everybody the space they can. And something in me was afraid he was going to get hurt. So I called the cops. I asked my wife, I was like, should I call the cops? It's like, he's walking up knocking on random people's doors asking for drugs. That's just not good, and he's young. The guy needs help. But I'm at the same way. I have an issue with cops. I didn't want to call the cops. So we called the non-emergency line, and naturally, first thing he wants is all my info. And I'm like, great. And I remember when the guy said, he's like, so we asked for drugs? And that's when I said, oh, he said Gus. I think he said something about stuff, but I wasn't sure. I didn't want to rat him out. I didn't want to get him in trouble. And I didn't want to have it on record that he had actually asked me for drugs. So I was like, he asked me for something like that. And he said stuff, but I couldn't make it out. But I was like, I'm just worried about his well-being. And then he went to my neighbor's house. And then he says, did he have any weapons or anything like that? I said, no. And I said, I want to make this clear. I was reluctant to call you guys. I want to make this clear on the record that he does not appear to be a threat. It appears that the guy needs help and he's high, and I'm afraid he is in danger or might harm himself somehow. And it's funny that you have to do that. Because in my mind I'm thinking, I'd feel bad if the guy got hurt, but I'd feel worse if the cops showed up and just shot him or, just beat his ass or, threw him in prison for drugs even. Because I don't think drugs should be illegal. I think all drugs should be legal. Then we wouldn't have these problems of people looking to, random people in the middle of the night to buy it. At least it'd be accessible. I'm sure a lot of things wouldn't change. But that's my story. That's about all I've got. Oh, I guess I should say I did come back and I reviewed the camera footage. And it took a while because I haven't figured out how the cameras work and how to set them to the right sensitivity. So they kind of go off all the time. I sifted through it back like a half hour and I found him. And he walks up in one camera. He walks past my wife's car parked on the street. And then he stops right by it. And then he keeps walking. He walks in front of my school bus. And at that point, he's kind of out of view. And he stood there for like 30 full seconds. Don't know what he was doing. Then he walks back by the car. No, I think he went forward a little ways. Then he turned around and walked all the way back to my wife's car. Back to the driver's side door. and then started to walk back, and then just stood by my mailbox for like a full minute, just like looking at my house. And my thought was like, does this guy see my school bus and think, oh, this must be a drug dealer? Or what is his thought process? What exactly is going on in this guy's head? Never seen him in my life. I've never sold drugs, so it's not like he has heard about me or something. I was like, it's so offensive when you have a family and you're trying to protect them. Somebody asking you for drugs, but not offensive, I should say, but bothersome, especially when it's that late at night. And especially since he'd never seen me. He didn't know me. I mean, because he did the same thing at my neighbor's house. So, yeah, I don't know. It was just very weird. But anyway, he walked back to my wife's car. I'm assuming he tried the handle on the door, probably. But it was locked. And then he walked back by my mailbox, waited for a minute. Then he walked through my lawn and walked right up to the front door and knocked. And so, honestly, I never looked for the camera footage of me yelling at him and chasing him off. So maybe that would be kind of an interesting thing to go look at. But, you know, really, I still feel like I kind of scared the guy. Like, I don't know, there's this part of me that doesn't want to hurt people or their feelings, or that I want people to go through what they're going through and get it over with without incremental bullshit that makes it worse. There's nothing worse to me than going to jail for drugs. I think that that is the absolute worst thing you can do for anyone for drugs. If somebody's has multiple charges for maybe distributing, that might be one thing. But even your first time selling drugs, I think that people should have free passes on all personal amounts of drugs. And even dealers should get a free pass because somebody's got to sell it if it's not legal, right? But that gets into a totally different territory from where this video was going, so I don't want to get into that. But the prison industrial complex is based on a large percentage of people who are just busted for drug use. And it's too bad because no drug laws have ever stopped these things. People like him will always wander the streets. There will always be somebody like that. I have met a lot of people like that living in the Portland area, especially when you go to Portland. You know, it's a beautiful city. It's got clean air most of the time. I mean, it's choking. Honestly, 2 hours ago, I thought the smoke was going away, so I put the fan in the window, and then I didn't even realize till it was too late that all the smoke had blown back in. I mean, it just started stinking up the whole house. But anyway, Portland's usually fresh air, but it is a really nice place to live, but there's a lot of homelessness, like a lot of places, like anywhere else. And there's a lot of drug use, and it's unfortunate because we as a society kind of ignore that and marginalize people like him. People walking around who are high, bothering people, they're just a nuisance to us. You know, call the cops and say, "Oh, I was threatened. I felt like my life was in danger." No. You know, like that's what was in my mind, was to protect him or at least get him help. But I know the reality is if he actually, at least I know he didn't have any drugs on him or he wouldn't be asking for any, right? But I don't want somebody going to jail for drugs. And I don't want somebody to have their life ruined over something so stupid. So, you know, it's been a part of our culture, our society since the beginning. People who are high or too high. And I guess it is what it is, so. Longer than intended video to make a simple point that a guy knocked on my door and I scared him off. But I figure many of you probably have a similar story or situation where, you know, weird people came on your property, or you encountered people who made you uncomfortable, but you knew they weren't really a danger. And basically to make the point that we're all just people. So, thanks for listening. I'll talk to you soon.